What up, everyone? I sat down with Benza Maman, a tech entrepreneur, musician, and spiritual creative who's at the forefront of blending artistry and AI in ways that redefine what's possible for creators. Benza went from meditating in the woods for months straight to co-founding a thriving AI company called Leap Year Learning and relaunching his music career with a spiritual and creative edge. His approach to weaving creativity, technology, and purpose together is something that every creator and entrepreneur can learn from. We talked about how artists and creatives can align their work with a mission while also making money, which is such an important topic that doesn't really get enough attention. If you're any type of creator trying to figure out how to balance passion, purpose, and profit, or just someone looking for inspiration on living a mission-driven life, this episode is for you. Don't forget to share this with a friend or on social media if it resonates with you, and hit that subscribe or follow button. It truly means the world to me, and it's the best way to show your love and support for the show. Let's get into it. Benza, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks so much, man. Thank you. Yeah, excited to be here.
Great to have you, man. Good to have you. What was your last oh shit moment? What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think oh shit?
Oh shit. I mean, definitely I would say the fires.
Yeah,
You know,
that's a big oh shit, man.
that was
Yeah,
that was first that's the first thing that comes to mind.
yeah, I get it. I get you on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were just talking about it before we started recording.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all navigating through that. And yeah, when we publish this, it'll be a few weeks after a lot of this stuff has happened. So one of the things we were saying is just we hope to continue to see the community come together, the way it's been done. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's definitely been like it's like moments of hardship bring out like the humanity,
mm-hmm.
and I think that yeah, I feel like we'll be sort of tested in our era of
Yeah,
like how much humanity will show up in the world for
absolutely.
all sorts of things. I mean, like the LA fires is one thing, but it's like there's a lot of issues in the world, and there's a lot of like fundamental, questions and what rights should be given to human beings, what like how should we be able to live in the world, what should be guaranteed. And I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of these questions like politically are like this way and that way in America, but then in a lot of different countries. And then there's like the rise of China, and it's a very different ideology from like the Western
Mhm.
way of doing things. And I feel like there will be a lot of questions that our generation will have to respond to.
Absolutely. And we're gonna talk more too about AI because you're very involved with it too. So like
Yeah,
that's good brings up so many more questions.
for sure. I know. I think AI is definitely the big wild card that can
Yeah.
change like like whatever was before. There were certain rules to that game because it was like human effort was needed, and then now there's like a new character, like a new rule to the game, which is that the possibility and the probability that human effort will no longer be needed,
It's
you know,
wild.
which is like
That's
we've
crazy.
never experienced
Never
that before.
experienced it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll get there. First, I want to ask you, can sound really truly heal? So like we live in LA, so naturally I've been to plenty of sound baths and sound healings, and actually I think the first one was that I ever went to was in Bali like 7 years ago or
Mm,
years ago or something like that.
yeah.
So I've experienced it, but what is it about it that we call it a sound healing? Like, is it actually the frequency affecting your cells? Is it rewiring your brain? What's actually going on in terms of sound and healing?
Well, so my dad, Fabian Maman, actually did the first research ever of the effect of sound on human cells.
Oh, wow.
And he did it with like a Kirlian microscope, and he partnered with a university in Paris in like the late 70s, I want to say, just to see was there an effective sound on human cells, because he was a musician. He was always just
Yeah.
curious. He was like, is there anything happening?
Yeah.
Um, and so you can go to the Tomado website, that's his academy, and see the
Uh-huh.
pictures, but like there is definitely a reaction. So like you see the picture of the cells before the sound and then after, and they look completely different.
Yeah.
So it's just like there is definitely a reaction to the sound. Now, like, he did some experiments, and some exploded some cancer cells. not in a human being, but in a petri dish, you know?
Mm.
So there were some that was like that helped basically launch the sound healing, you know.
How long ago was that?
It was in like the 70s
Okay.
and the 80s. So and it took a long time for that to kind of build.
Yeah.
But it's essentially like it built into the sound healing world that we know today, that like you know, in LA everybody you meet's a sound healer. um but so scientifically there is an effect. Whether that effect can be like clinically said to be healing or not,
It's different.
unsure. There's just not enough study,
Got
you
it.
know.
Interesting.
But that being said, in a more like life experience kind of way, like my dad was a sound healer, and he healed a lot of people, you know. And then I've done my own sound healings, and like, you know, I've like heard people's reactions and experiences, and people like saying that all the like breakthroughs that they've gone through and things that they feel like they've healed. So I believe that it does.
Yeah.
And I think that the technology and the science and and the ability to actually understand how will be discovered. And it's one of those things where it's like, you know, the like some of the yogis from like the Vedic era, you know, in India, like some of what they said is now being proven true today. But it took thousands of years for, you know, humanity and science to catch up to be able to understand what they were even saying. So it's like
Yeah.
there's
So
these
interesting.
fundamental truths that some people just know
Yeah.
that like get proven thousands of years later, which is, I don't know, it's kind of cool.
It is really cool.
Yeah,
I think that timeline's shortening more and more
it is.
now,
I
right?
think
Because
so.
now we
Yeah.
have the ability to test things so much faster and
Yeah.
scientifically prove things. That's so
Yeah.
interesting. I was just at a sound healing actually last week, and my good friend Costanza. I don't know if you know Costanza here in LA, but
No.
anyway, so we did a sound healing. There was multiple instruments actually being played, and dude, it was wild. So at the end of it, I was in a very good place, just very peaceful. Usually I'm very at peace, kind of get into this like twilight zone, kind of
Hmm.
dreaming and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And all of a sudden I started feeling like lots of pain, dude.
Mm.
Tons of pain in my shoulder, the back of my shoulder, my arm. And it was like it was like really like, I would say like a 6 to 7 out of 10. And I was just like, and I have no injuries. I have
Mhm.
nothing, right? And I just, all of a sudden, I started getting really fidgety and I started moving my arm and it was just hurting and hurting and hurting and hurting. And finally, I was like, okay, I need to just breathe into this pain. And like,
Mhm.
I don't know why this is happening. There's for some reason, but I need to breathe into it and surrender to this pain, right? And so the more I would fight it, the more it would hurt. The more I would surrender to it and breathe, the less it would go away. And it went away. And it fully went away. And then they did that, you know, they were doing sharing at the end and all that stuff. And I kind of share about the shoulder pain, and the guy that was to my left, he goes, oh my god, he goes, my right arm, which is the one next to my left, he's like, has been injured for a long time, and I just got back from the gym and it's been hurting like crazy, and I've been really working on the pain that I'm feeling right there. And I was like, okay, I don't know what just happened, but his fucking right arm that was not his pain transferred to my I felt his pain, like quite literally. And then luckily it went away. I think that's what happened, because otherwise it was just a really weird coincidence. But anyway, just a weird story.
No, that's
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah.
That reminds me of this time. Have you heard of Vipassana meditation?
No.
It's a usually 10-day silent
Oh,
meditation.
Vipassana.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Um, so your story reminds me because I did that. I'm a big meditator. I love meditating, and I
Yeah.
did it, and it was really hard for me to do, which was surprising to me because I'm like, I love meditating so much.
Yeah.
But I was sitting indoors next to, you know, you have your assigned seat, so you sit next to the same people.
Oh,
I
at the
never,
time.
yeah, but I never thought anything of it.
Oh.
And when I was in there, I was like, it was so difficult, and meditating had never been difficult for me. And I just saw like such difficult like imagery in my mind and like painful feelings. I was like, what is going on? And I broke the rules, and I started meditating outside. You're supposed to meditate inside, and I just would meditate outside because I was like, wow, I'm not feeling it. I don't feel good in there.
Yeah.
Um at the end of the 10 days is the first time you get to talk to the people. I end up talking to the guy who was sitting to my left, and he said that every time he closes his eyes, he sees these crazy images. And it was like exactly what I was seeing. And like, so every time that he says that he like has trouble falling asleep and all this stuff. But yeah, he was saying that every time that he closed his eyes and tried to meditate, he would have like these really crazy feelings and these really difficult like images and all this pain, all this stuff. And I was like, whoa, I was feeling that when I was next to him. And
Only when you were next.
only when I was next to him. And I wasn't feeling it when I went outside, and I've never felt it before or after. And I was just like
Picking up his
yeah.
frequency.
Yeah. So I remember being like,
Man.
whoa, that was so crazy.
Yeah,
Like,
that is crazy.
because
Yeah, there's something there. That's
similar to
not
your
yeah,
story.
very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine was more physical. Yours was more vision-wise. But yeah,
Yeah.
that just proves you there's something going on there. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah.
Not that I needed to prove or anything, but I read that you actually meditated for 2 months. What was that about?
Yeah. So basically,
In nature. Right?
it was the end of the COVID unemployment. It was, I think, the summer of 2021. And yeah, I mean, my life at that time was just nowhere where I wanted it to be. I had no idea what to do. I was just like a broke musician, and it was COVID, and I was on living off of COVID unemployment. And it was a really tough time. And through a series of different events, I end up just going to meditate in the woods like every single day in Bellingham, Washington. I was living in Bellingham, which is like 20 minutes south of the Canadian border. It's north of Seattle, like 2 hours.
Nice and chilly.
But not in the summer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in the summer it's really nice.
Probably, yeah.
And I was reading all these books about all these gurus and people who were meditating, all this stuff, and I was getting really into that. And I was just like, I have 2 more months of the unemployment. It was actually 3 months. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I literally have no idea what I'm going to do. But if there's ever a time that I could go and just meditate all day, it's now, So I did that it was actually 3 months.
All day, every day, pretty much.
Yeah.
By yourself.
Yeah. I would wake up, go outside, and just meditate. And it wasn't like I closed my eyes like at 8 a.m. and opened them for the first time at 5 p.m.
Of course.
I would meditate, and then, I brought my, I was reading a book by Mikhail Ivanov, who's a guru from Bulgaria.
Okay.
But it was basically, it was a lot, it was basically meditating the whole day.
So you do like an hour long or 2 hour long meditation, then open your eyes, and then maybe we'll go on a little walk.
I wouldn't time it at all. I would just kind of try to basically meditate for as long as possible, and then maybe I would read a little bit, but then mostly meditating. It was most of the day. And at first it was really hard. I would sit down and I would literally just stand up and start pacing, because I'm like, wait, what am I doing? I need to be productive. Like, like I have to do all these things. And I'm like, no, I don't have to do anything. And I would like sit back down, and like I had all of this like cultural programming that I needed to be productive, and I needed to do stuff. And it was so ingrained in me that it was like so difficult for me to meditate for that long. But eventually that just kind of calmed down, and I just like, it was literally the happiest time in my entire life. And I was so excited, because you like wake up, you go outside into nature,
Really?
and like, yeah, you're just like, I'm just there with the trees and like the sky, and the grass, and you're just there, and it's just like pure joy. I've never been happier than then. And it was literally like, it was, yeah, I can't.
What about your physical body's tiredness of being in a position where all of a sudden you're like, I don't know how long your longest meditations were, but I'm guessing like a few hours, right, at a time.
Yeah, I mean,
but like, were you like, oh, like your whole, like your knees or your back, or like, was that like not there? Your physical body's not there, maybe?
It wasn't like that noticeable.
It really wasn't.
Like sometimes it'd be a little bit painful, a little bit, but
like you'd find like a tree, like to kind of support your back a little bit and just sit.
Yeah, and then sometimes I wouldn't sit against the tree. I mean, sometimes it's like sitting in my half lotusy thing
Yeah.
for like a while, and then sometimes I would just kind of, you know, sit in some other kind of way and kind of try
Yeah.
to continue the meditation. But
What's up, guys? I hope you're enjoying the show. If you love the show, please share it with a homie. It would mean the world to me. Also want to let you know that you can check out sebastiannam.com for more resources like this, and also www.goglobal.agency, a digital marketing agency that's end-to-end, helping purpose-driven and mission-driven brands scale their impact. Again, that's goglobal.agency or sebastiannam.com. Please hit me up straight up on Instagram, DM me, ask me questions. I'd love to connect with you and see what you thought about this episode or other episodes and what you want to hear more of. Much love. So outside of joy, which is you said one of the most joy-filled times of your life, did you have any revelations during the 3 months of meditating that you were like, oh yeah, like light bulb?
I definitely was connecting, more into gratitude, of just like the gratitude of being a human being. And what that specific time in my life felt like was an unwinding of like so many like cultural beliefs, old beliefs I had. It was a
Yeah.
reprogramming of the like my self-talk, because all my 20s, like I just struggled to be a musician. Like I was trying to be a musician and not succeeding. And which basically means that you're really broke.
Yeah.
If you're trying and not, if you're failing at being a musician, like you're super broke. I mean,
Yeah.
even if you're succeeding at being a musician, you might be kind of broke. So if you're not succeeding, like, I was,
Have to be succeeding. You
yeah,
can't be mid.
yeah, there's no middle class in music.
Yeah.
Um, so, I was like sleeping on friends' couches and like doing that whole thing, which like when you're in your late 20s, that's not so cool anymore.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Um, so yeah, it was really like it was a change, because I used to motivate myself through like criticism and negativity and like, oh, I don't deserve to like take time off. I need to work harder because I wasn't as successful as
Yeah.
I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And so that 3 months was just a complete reset of all of that, and learning to motivate through self-love and connecting to, gratitude, and realizing all that I did have in life. And it just felt like I was like doing like a factory reset, you know, like you do that on a
Epic.
computer.
Yep.
But yeah, it just felt like
Yep.
a factory reset on like my internal landscape.
Sounds amazing.
And at the very end of that time, I just had this like, and so during that time also, at the end of the day, I would journal a little bit, because I would see these TikToks about like manifestation,
Yeah.
like manifestation girls on TikTok. And like I started following one of them because she was cute, right? but then I'm like, well, what does she actually say? And then I'm like interesting, like what does that mean?
Yeah.
So I started like, okay, like, so I would visualize myself wearing white, living on the beach.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
And at the time I really wanted a Tesla. So I would like visualize myself driving this Tesla,
Yeah.
living on the beach, wearing white. I would write down these things at the end of the day. And at the end of the 3 months, like I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no money. I had no job prospects. I had no clue, but I had a lot of joy. I had a lot of like excitement. And I had this, it wasn't like this revelation or this big loud thing, but this subtle push to like go visit my friend in California.
Mm.
And
So that was at the end of the 3 months.
yeah.
So at the end of the whole meditation thing, because you said I was like following on TikTok. So that's during those months of meditation, were you mostly off your phone? But then
Yeah.
the end is when you started.
No. So the TikTok was before.
Oh, okay.
So that was before I started hearing about meditation, and then I was like, hey, this is interesting. Then during the 3 months,
Yeah.
one of the things that came to me one of the days, I remember.
California. Got it.
No, I remember the TikToks. I remembered the talk about manifestation while I was meditating. I was like, oh yeah, that's interesting that this person was saying that. Like,
Yeah.
let's try it.
Yeah.
And then at the very end of that 3 months, I decided to go visit my friend in California. And I was kind of sort of trying to get a gig as a music producer in LA, like in Like I kind of had one connection with this guy who was like kind of making a living doing it, which is a big deal in the music industry because
Right.
it's hard to even get there.
Yeah.
And he couldn't really help me. Really sweet guy. He tried, but he didn't have like a surplus of work really. He didn't, but he kind of tried to help me. And I'm crashing at my friend's house, spending the day with this other music producer. And then the last day of my trip, I'm about to go back to Bellingham, Washington, and the friend who I'm staying with, he invites me to go on a hike. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And on that hike, we connect a little bit more. It's our time to kind of bond and like brah or like whatever you want to call it. And he's like, yeah, I think I can get you a job at this tech startup. And I was like, what? I was a musician, like trying to like do music. I have no experience in tech at all. He's like, yeah, I think I can get you an entry level job at this tech startup. And I was like in my mind, it's like it doesn't compute. Like I can't understand that version of reality. I don't know what that means. I'm like not looking for that opportunity. Like I don't even know what to say about it. So I'm like not sure if I'm gonna do it. And I am kind of, thinking about it and I'm like, well, I literally have no other prospects at all of any kind of job and there is a job opportunity. And I'm like, and it would pay me the most money I'd ever made in my life, which wasn't much at that time, but it was like an actual like salary for like this entry level position. And I was just like, I guess I'm going to do that. So I end up just straight up moving down here to work at that startup. And I did that for 10 months. And then eventually me and him leave and start our own company. And
That was
the rest
Leap
is
Year
history.
Learning that you started with Hearn?
Leap Year Learning is my own company that I started with that guy.
Yeah.
And we both left the tech startup to start that company.
Amazing. And so in Leap Year Learning is online courses that are about AI, creativity, basically all kinds of like learning skills that sort of reach like a global audience, correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that business completely changed my life.
And that took off.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So it's like it was this meditating in the woods for 3 months, doing this huge reset, just completely just erasing whatever life
That's wild, man.
experience I had
Yeah.
up until that point. This
Yeah.
little inkling to go to California, this job, which turned into then
Right.
what I'm doing now. And now to bring it back to the manifestation I had, for some reason I wear mostly white and I live on the beach and I drive a Tesla.
That's so funny.
So
It's great. That's awesome. So before we get into your music today, I want to touch a little bit more on Leap Year Learning and just in general about, AI and creativity. I think there's so much going on with with AI in general, right? Like, and what creativity really is. Like I find myself, for example, like I'll just give you an example. We were watching some football with my friends this past weekend and like a great it was a really funny commercial. It was a progressive commercial actually. And they have like a slogan thing where they talk about like passive progressive. Don't be passive progressive. And it's really funny and they're really well written. And my bias now was like, I was like, that is really effing funny. And now I was like, oh, like they probably used AI to come up with that idea. And I was kind of disappointed. And then I also realized how quickly I judged that. I'm like, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But what if they didn't? What if they didn't? What is creativity? What if, like, it just kind of blew up my mind. I was like, what is creativity, right? So how do you feel about this whole blend of AI and creativity? Where is it really at? Is creativity really just going to die or is it just really evolving? And how do you see it all?
Well, basically, evolving is how I see it. Because, human beings, like we just get used to things.
Yeah.
Like, and I see this in all aspects of life, but whatever becomes our new normal, we get really used to that immediately. And there's this quote that's like, rich people don't know they're rich. They just live at higher standards. And that's not a general statement, but it is this, but it's this idea of like, all you want is to like have enough to sustain yourself until you have that. And then you're sustaining, and then you want a little more,
Yeah.
and a little more, and a little more. And you see that with the billionaires who are trying to go to space and all this stuff. Like there's like this endless thing which has to do with like how we're wired with dopamine. But to get back to what you're saying is, I think like, you know, music in the 1960s, there wasn't as much access to music because you needed to go into a recording studio to record your music. Therefore, there were less records like there was less music that was possible to listen to than there is today, because not everyone in the world could just make music on their laptop and upload it to Spotify. Back then, you needed access to a recording studio, which, you know, was super expensive. You needed a band usually, so you had an agreement of it, like 4 people who are like, we want to do this together
to make music with
together and to practice and to be good at their instruments, and then to find a recording studio and pay for that, which could cost $1 million or whatever. So it's like, back then, you know, pop music was like very special. Today, I think there's like 70,000 songs uploaded to Spotify every single day, and that was before AI. Now there's AI music where you can hit a button, generate like, you know, endless amounts of variations of songs and things that all sound pretty fine. They sound pretty good.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and I'm already noticing in my lifetime, music is becoming less important in a way. Like everybody listens to music and we all love music, and we still have these artists that we like, but like most people don't even know the artist that they're listening to. Like so.
What is that? Like, what is that? Like checking, what is that song?
Yeah.
Who is this?
Yeah, they're like, oh, I love this. Like, who is it? I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know.
You know, so I love this playlist. People will be like, this playlist is so good. I'm like, who's on the playlist? Like, I don't know. You know, so
I'll never forget. Sorry to interrupt you, but along the lines before we get away from that is like, when I was a kid, the first cassette that I got, it ages me, by the way. So it was a cassette, and it was Guns N' Roses' "Use Your Illusion 2." My cousin had given me that. Was our first cassette. I loved it. I loved Guns N' Roses, and then Guns N' Roses came. I'm from Argentina. Guns N' Roses came to Argentina. I was like, this is a freaking huge deal, dude.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget these images of just hordes of human beings in the streets, like outside their hotel, like literally like women like crazy screaming and yelling, and like a couple people like literally committed suicide because their parents weren't letting them go to the show because it was the music of the devil. It was just like, whoa, dude, like music, you know. And it was, so like, it's just going along lines of like, nobody feels that. I mean, like maybe like Biebs can go to a concert and like you could see some teenage girls like going crazy and screaming per se, but that level of craze that humans had around music and artists was a whole different level, huh?
Definitely. I think, and there will be probably always some people who can fill that role. Like, you know, Billie Eilish broke through. I don't know if Fred again has that, not that level of insanity, but like he broke through to a level beyond most.
Correct.
But in general, music has become way more commoditized and way more like, you know, it's like it became a lot less special. And it's like, and it's because there's so much good music out there. There's actually too much good music to even listen to in one lifetime. You know, like there's probably more music that I would actually like that I could ever listen to. So it became less special, even just through even just human beings making it. AI blows that up to a whole another level. And so I think in all different, like in all aspects of things, AI will just raise our standards for what we can enjoy as creativity. You know, like when AI video hits social media in a big way, which it hasn't yet, when that happens, like it's going to change social media for sure, you know? And I don't know exactly how, but it's like, we're just going to get used to seeing a level of excellence that, you know, and the floor is going to rise. But with all that being said, the need for human connection is going to rise also. So like, you know, me as a music producer is now less exciting to me than me as a piano player. Like me playing an actual instrument, like an acoustic real instrument, to me, I think that's going to have more value in the future than me being a music producer, because all the production in the world, AI is going to be able to do.
So we're going to go back to the basics in a way.
I think we're going to go back to the human element, you know? So it's like the millennial generation kind of got super excited about music production, like, oh, all these effects, and we made EDM, like, what can you do with just like the computer? And then same with the film industry, they got on into these special effects and these, you know, it got away from like the, just an actor like acting or just a musician like playing. Like, we got away from the human, but now we got so away that that we're gonna need to go back to that element of connection. And
Mm-mm.
I think I think the AI era will really create like everyone's gonna be able to do anything, right? Um, so the idea and the vision is going to be the most important thing. So it's like whoever has the best idea and whoever has like this, the best vision or strongest or the vision that serves the most, that's going to be what breaks through the noise.
Yeah.
Because like what we're all becoming the CEOs of our own of our own, person, our own business, or everything,
Yeah.
So the role of the human being will be to be like the visionary, the
Yeah.
CEO, the person who like decides like this and this and this and this and not that, not this, not that. And we're all gonna have to become curators of like what all these AIs are doing. We have to choose what the best thing is. And so that will be, the artists of the future and probably just everything of the future. But
Mhm.
specifically for art, I think it really will be like, what is the purpose? And I think that like having that strong vision and having a purpose is going to be the artist of the future. And I think that's something that was lost in art. If you go back to like the Greek times, all the Greek tragedies and the Greek
Mm.
comedies and those stories, like they were created for a purpose to
Yeah.
teach morals,
Mm.
like they all had a reason to exist.
Mm.
And at some point, you know, um, we decided, no, it's entertainment. We just
Right.
want to be entertained. And we
Mm.
stopped caring about the moral and we just wanted to see what's interesting.
Mm.
But interesting is going to disappear
Yeah.
because everything's going to be so interesting that nothing's going to be
Interesting.
interesting. So I do think we're going to have to return to purpose. And I think that that's extremely important because I don't think we need to be entertained. It's like that line in Gladiator.
Are you not entertained?
Yeah.
Music with a purpose, brother.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love how that just kind of, came, how you led into that concept, because as you were just talking about it, this sort of endless amount of music and more music that you could ever listen to that you would like in a lifetime. And it's sort of this sort of like, it's almost like got like a not negative, but almost like somber. It's kind of like, oh, that's kind of disappointing. So I was kind of feeling disappointed, but then you kind of coming back to this, okay, yeah, but now we can come back into the basics and connect with the instruments and the human connection element, and then also the purpose behind it. So that's really beautiful. So let's go into that, because usually, look, you're the founder of this successful tech, company. Like usually that's enough for most people, and that would be plenty. And you could go out and be like, how do I scale the shit out of this thing, right? But that wasn't enough for you, and you kind of decided to go back into making music, right? Because you were making music for a while. You were sort of this broke, quote unquote, starving artist, broke musician, and you have this sort of awakening, meditate, get into this, build this tech company, very successful tech company. Now you're going back into, okay, I want to create music that elevates consciousness. Most people, I don't know, most people, a lot of people are going to be like, that's some real woo-woo shit, bro. You know what I mean? Like, what does it really mean to you? How can music actually elevate consciousness? But maybe I'll just ask you this. What do you consider the elevation of consciousness?
Well, I really appreciate that question. Um, I would say like the elevation of consciousness is what I feel like is the main purpose of my life, to elevate like my own consciousness and then, the world around me as much as possible through my own self-development. But
Me too, by the way, bro.
let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very similar
Yeah.
missions.
I love that. I love
it.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And as far as what that really is, I would love to be able to have like a one-liner, like really great way of just
Yeah.
saying it in simple terms, but like the only way I can explain it now is how I experience it, which is just like, to rise up my own consciousness and kind of think from a higher place and to transmute the negative thoughts and the negative feelings and the negative like you know, instincts, you know, of like of the human being, and trying to, you know, be essentially like more connected to God and more noble and more, you know, like kind and helpful, and that's what I feel like is the evolution of consciousness. And maybe another way to put it too would be like to connecting to this idea of the collective consciousness versus like the selfish individual, where we can like start to really understand that we are a collective species.
Hmm.
And because I think that like we see so much selfishness in the world, and I think that it's actually just like it's just it's a folly in a way, because like that experience you had feeling that other guy's pain, or like me like seeing what that other person was seeing, like I don't think that we can be free as long as anybody is suffering. You know, I really do think we're a collective consciousness.
Yeah.
And so I think part of the evolution of consciousness, in my opinion, is understanding that like our responsibility is to more than just ourselves.
Mm.
And I think innately when we see these like mega billionaires, we innately don't like that idea. And I think there's some jealousy and some scarce minded, you know, thing going on for some people. But I think collectively in the human spirit, we can recognize that that's kind of that's not right. And not from like a fair perspective, like just that we need to take care of each other. And those who have the means to do that, I think, need to have a responsibility to take care of everybody else too.
Yeah, I think you know, you hit on a lot of interesting things. To go back a little on the elevation of consciousness, I think that there is in terms of if one like yourself or myself has a part of their mission is to help elevate consciousness. I think understanding too that depending on where on that path somebody is, uh, at least a bit of an elevation, quote unquote, or progression of that is a win, right?
For sure.
So, and we're all at different levels of that. And so, regardless of where you're at in your journey, if there's somewhat of an elevation towards, you know, a higher living, whether it's having more peace, joy, more connection to God, more connection to the collective consciousness, it's a win, right?
For sure. Yeah.
So that's an interesting thing. And in terms of like what you were saying about, kind of like, you know, billionaires, or like, you know, this kind of what we're constantly being fed of these sort of individual riches and wealth. I think on one end, it definitely makes more people desire that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And sort of there's these like new role models that a lot of people have. And it's interesting because if you're like, do you want to be a billionaire? I'm like, no, like, that's not my goal. But like, would I love to take $1 billion? Absolutely. Now, because I think I would just be able to do so much with that in terms of impact and change. So it's interesting. I wonder if in our lifetime, at least, we'll get to see some billionaires going to town on aiming to elevate the collective consciousness, right? As opposed to just not.
Yeah.
Other missions, yeah. Yeah.
I think we will.
Yeah.
You know, I think we're probably perfectly on track.
All
You
right.
know, like the human species, and like in like whatever the, you know, design is, like as difficult and as maybe like chaotic as it seems,
Yeah.
I think we're probably just right on track of like people realizing like, okay, like how can we show up for each other more? And
Yeah.
like we started off by talking about the LA fires, and then LA, the community
Yeah.
showing up in a
Yeah.
huge way.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I think that sometimes when life is too good and too easy, we're like a little bit asleep,
Mm.
you know, and it takes a little something to wake us
Sure.
up. And so the hope is that we can wake up and then stay awake peacefully, you know.
Yeah.
But you asked, how can music help the elevation of consciousness?
Yeah. I
And
was gonna go back to that. How are you aiming to make music that elevates consciousness?
so for me, it's basically pretty simple. Like for one, I use a lot of acoustic sounds, and I believe that like in my dad's research, it was the effect of acoustic sound
Mm.
on the cells that changed, you know, the cells in the human body. So I use a lot of acoustic sounds, which to me is like the healing frequencies. And then also like it's just about like the energy that I'm putting into the music what I'm, emanating when I'm playing and feeling, and I'm always trying to tap into like a high vibrational state when I'm making the music because I think intention is everything. And then also lyrically, I have a song "Nature Equals God," and it's like I stepped out into nature and I saw God, and like that's like the main lyric. And so it's just like if that's gonna go into someone's
Almost
subconscious,
like a mantra. Yeah.
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 And then another one's "Dance with the Divine." So
Yeah.
so to me, they're high vibe lyrics,
Yeah.
and I always want to work on the music when I'm in a high vibe state, and then put that intention into it. And I think it's not more complicated than that. I don't think it's like some other bigger mysterious thing. I think like positive and positive lyrics go a
Oh,
long way.
yeah, man.
You know,
Absolutely.
like
I was listening to that song this morning, by the way.
let's
It's very,
go.
yeah, it was very upbeat, very joyful, very like definitely kind of lifts you up,
Yeah,
It's funny, I was thinking about that. I was talking to a friend about sort of like just rap and hip hop in general, and like it's like, where's the conscious rap at, yo? Like, and
yeah,
there is some now,
there is
what I mean,
some.
but
Yeah,
it's really cool to start seeing that, the just hip hop with more, the lyrics are so important, like you said. And it's funny because I moved in '94 from Argentina, and it's funny because as soon as I got in, for whatever reason, like Tupac was like hitting, like
yeah.
it was resonating, and I loved it. And it like just the cadence and the music, and it was just so catchy. But I just picture like my mom like listening to some 9-year-old like singing Tupac lyrics, like not chill, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so, and it's funny because that gets instilled, like you said. So obviously, I wasn't like n- actually resonating with the lyrics. It was just super. I just
Yeah.
the music, and it was
Yeah.
catchy. You know what I mean? But yeah, so I think that the lyrical shift is massive, and what that can do subconsciously, like you said.
For sure. I think that is so simple and so profound. If you
Yeah.
think of the power of mantra, and even the power of like in manifestation, we talk about how like to only speak what you want to happen. And I have a really interesting story about LMFAO. Do you remember that?
Yeah, of course.
So it's like, do you know Blank B?
No.
Okay, so he's a friend. He's in our
Okay.
community, and he was saying
Every day I see my dream. That song.
he was saying like he used to produce for LMFAO, and I was like, no way, like you did, like that's what you did, and because they're such a ridiculous band.
Oh, I know. Yeah, yeah.
I hadn't listened to
Good
him for
branding.
10 years, but that's like what he did, and it still like sustains his living today.
Uh-huh.
The royalties from those songs, they were huge.
Yeah.
And he was saying that they were really into The Secret, like the movie The Secret.
Yeah.
And they had this thing where like they would only in the studio, you were only allowed to speak what you wanted to happen. I was like, LMFAO, like
You're like, what?
you would never.
They were that woke?
So ridiculous, and like they're super woo woo. Like I'm sexy, and I know.
Yeah,
I'm like
yeah.
those guys. I'm like really, and it's very,
Waking up next to a beautiful
yeah,
girl.
yeah. And I'm like,
Like what?
but so they were super
That's
into
funny.
to manifestation, and they were really into like only speaking what you wanted to happen.
Mm.
I think I remember him saying something about like a tip jar that you had to put in money if you said something negative or whatever.
Yes.
But it's like,
Love
so the power of speaking and
that.
manifestation is so powerful. So to bring that back to the
Yeah.
lyrics, it's like all like literally saying positive things, saying positive mantras.
Yeah.
Like that is healing, that has effect, and that is so powerful. So when you think about music, yeah, just literally positive lyrics, game changer.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. So manifestation is such like it's such a buzzword nowadays, right? Like you
Yeah.
said, you were on TikTok and you had some cute girl talking about it and this and that. And
Yeah.
I took the To Be Magnetic courses. I don't know if you ever did.
Yeah.
Those the TBM courses and whatnot. And obviously she blew up with a big podcast. And there's so much around it. And I think that there's also something to be said, I think, about like, look, if you just put something on a vision board, or you just say it a few times, it ain't gonna happen. Like that's not really how it works, at least from my understanding. So how do you, because you've got courses, you teach, you inspire through music, but what is your take on sort of manifestation? And also, why do you see achieving financial stability as a spiritual responsibility?
For sure. Well, so if I answer that second one, the second question first,
Yeah.
I believe that so having financial success does a few things. It gives you time freedom, which is important because you need time to do something, to make, if you were to make the world a better place, if you were to work on yourself, to, do the meditation to elevate your consciousness, or even the 3D stuff of like, how can you make your neighborhood better? How can you, like, what can you do to make the world better? You need time.
Mm-hmm.
So money buys you time. Money also buys you energy, because if you are working full time at a 9 to 5 or something, and maybe you're making money, but you don't have any energy left, you need, maybe you have a family, and it's like, what? You have, like, you're exhausted on Saturday, Sunday, you got a little bit of energy, Monday, you're back to work. So it's like, you're not going to change the world on Sunday afternoon, like, so you need the energy. And then third, like, if you have the time, you need the resources to amplify your voice so that you can actually do something with that time. It's like, you have a vision, you have an idea. Like, I started with a couple of guys, like a regenerative incubator. Like, I could only do that because I had, some resources and some time, and that whole thing was free. But the idea is like, okay, if one of those businesses needed some investment, I could jump in potentially. And it's like, you need to be, the resources amplify your voice so that you can tell the world what you like, what you think is important. And I think we have so many aspects we need to change, so I think it's a responsibility for, like, the new earth leaders, if that term of, like, the conscious people, the good people, the spiritual people who want to make the world a better place.
Mm-hmm. You need money.
They can't be broke,
Yeah.
because like, if they are, they're not going to make a change. And I think that's what we saw in the 60s. Like, there were some of the artists were like the spiritual people, but most of the hippies were broke, and nothing changed. Not really. Like, there was an opening of consciousness, but the people who, like, really made it from that generation, or were, the people who shaped the world, at least in a 3D way, were the people who had money. The people who started the hedge funds, the companies, the corporations, the politicians. All of our politicians in America are still from that era, but they weren't the hippies. They were the other people.
Correct.
So I think, like, we need to have the integration of, the spiritual practice and the purpose with the resources, so that we can say, hey, we want healthy food, we want great, we want healthy conditions of, like, living. We don't want, like, to just be in these endless wars. We want to take care of each other, like, all these things. We can say what's important to us, otherwise the people with money basically just do what they're going to do. So, and do you know Paramahansa Yogananda, who started? Yeah. So, one of the messages that I loved that he said was that he was not asking the Americans to be yogis and to quit their jobs and meditate all day. He was saying, do your life, live your life, and meditate. Like, be a yogi in the morning, throughout the day while you're doing your work, and in the evening. But he wasn't asking them to be like these monks going out into the mountains and just, retiring from society. And I think that's the purpose of spirituality in America, is so that America is this place of business. That's what this place is. This country really is built off of that, built for that. And the integration of spirituality with that, I think, is the purpose of this country. And so I think it is a responsibility for people who have this calling to make the world a better place, to be successful, so that they really can.
I just couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, thanks, man.
That was wonderful. I love that. That was just preach, brother.
Yeah, I mean, I think about this stuff all the time.
That was wonderful. I love that. What excites you the most about the future of your work? Where is your work going in terms of music and elevating consciousness and maybe AI and creativity and courses? Like, how can you sum that up of where you want to be taking it for, like, the next, year or two?
Yeah, well, so I'm starting a school group, which is an online community with live mentorship and online courses that's supporting, like, supporting light workers and how to, like, start and have a thriving business.
Yeah.
And so that's really lit me up, because I'm teaching, the meditation techniques that I know, the manifestation techniques that I know, and then, like, how to build an online course, how to run a digital community, how to get high ticket clients for a coaching or some other kind of offering, just the business basics too. Because, like, if you're in business and you don't know, like, the fundamentals of business, you're at a huge disadvantage, and they're not very complicated, like, the business bros, like those people aren't geniuses. They just have some information, and that information serves what when you're going on the journey. So like I'm empowering the light workers to take their businesses further. And so I'm feeling
Love
very,
that.
very lit up by that.
Yeah, I can see it. I
As
can feel it.
Thank you. As well as the music. Have you ever seen Odessa in concert?
They're my favorite artists.
Yeah. So like also
They're actually my favorite.
Also-
Led Zeppelin and Odessa are my top two.
okay, yeah. So Odessa, like also one of my favorite artists, and the best live show I've ever seen in my entire life.
Oh, they're incredible.
Um,
Production is
that
pretty-
live show inspired my live show, except for I'm a one-man team
Yeah,
who does it
yeah.
in my free time, so the quality is a little different. But I have a projector and lights
Yeah.
and things and that go with the music, and it's inspired by them. So my big vision is to do concerts/workshops. And for me, that means trying to, instead of combining because back when I was pursuing music full time, I was like, who are you? Are you like the Beach Boys meets like Lil Wayne? That'd be really weird. But like, that's what everyone they wanted to know. Are you this meets that? And I'm thinking of like, well, I think I want to be like Odessa meets like Joe Dispenza.
Bro.
Combining different genres,
That's
different
dope.
kinds of things. Because I
Yeah.
want to do meditation workshops like Joe does, because
So
they're
fun.
so amazing, so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
I don't know if you've like been to one or
I
seen
didn't go to the week long. I actually got that from my mom for Mother's Day. I bought her the retreat.
such
so
a
she
good-
told me all about
It's
the
an
retreat.
amazing
Yeah.
gift. So I'm like, I would love to facilitate meditation, hold that space for people, and then
Yeah.
also do a concert.
Yeah.
And the combination of those ideas, I think, came from just living here in the west side of LA, where like we have the weirdest but most amazing events where it's
Yeah, man.
sound bath / disco / cacao /
Yeah.
breathworks. And I'm like, what? It
Yeah.
doesn't even make sense, but it's so cool. So I'm
Yeah.
like, that to me is my vision of like, oh, I want to bring like the workshop meditation space.
Yeah.
And then also have the amazing like excitement of a concert. Cause like I remember like seeing Odessa and like you're just waiting for them to come on stage.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
And they're late
Yeah.
on purpose, and you're like, where are you? Like you're like, come on. And then it's like
man.
it just blows your mind how amazing it is.
I love that.
So that's my big vision.
Excited. for that.
2025. Yeah.
Excited for you, Benza. Excited for you. I'll leave you on this last question. What are 2 traits that a conscious leader must embody today?
That's a good question. I would say definitely have to listen to your intuition. I think that's fundamentally important because like the right choice and the right thing is not static and it's always moving. And so you need to know, like, you need to kind of go with the flow and trust your intuition on, what might be the right thing to do today might not be the right thing to do tomorrow. And so a fluidity, I think, is important because I think rigidity, it doesn't work. Our minds like boxes and rules, but I just don't think that that's that's the way that the world works, and especially not the way that like the new earth is going to happen. So listening to your intuition is one, and then I think another trait would be having a foundation of a personal practice. Be it meditation, qigong, yoga, or whatever gets you or whoever in an aligned state. I think that is fundamentally important as well, because with chaos in the world and social media and like all this stuff, like it's noisier than ever before. So I think we need to double down and find that inner stillness more than you would have had to 100 years ago or 200 years ago when there wasn't this like constant like stimulus from all sides. And all of those things leading to just being in alignment. So
love it. Well, Benza, it was truly a pleasure. I absolutely love this conversation, bro. And just thank you for what you're doing. Keep being a conscious leader. You truly are one. And it was great to have you on, man. Excited to continue to follow your journey, brother.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you hit me up to be on this podcast. I was with my friend Steven Sally.
Well, that's when I just mentioned, conscious rap.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm thinking about Steven Sally. He's been on the show.
Yeah, he told me.
Yeah.
I was hanging out with him and I was like, you know what? I wanna call in being on more podcasts. And the next morning, you hit
Bro.
literally like the next morning, and I was like, and I called Steve, and I was like, dude, you remember when I was telling you this thing? This guy just like hit me up, and I was like, let's go.
That's you're an expert manifester, bro. I love it. Amazing. Well, thank you again, brother.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, man.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you like the show, please subscribe or share with a homie. It means the world to me. And honestly, straight up, just hit me up. The easiest way on Instagram, SEBNAUM. Ask me questions. I want to be here as a resource and a source of inspiration. I hope you have a beautiful rest of the day. Much love.